I want to
Thank you so much for having me,
start
Malika.
with this tweet because you have a lot of fans online, some of whom are writing about you and others are tweeting about you. This is Tess, and Tess says, "What I love about Lina's work is the way her paintings insist on complex hybrid identities. Her figures and patterns are so rich in influences and references, but also totally their own." That is a lot said there in just a few characters. Tell us, Lina, how would you describe your work?
I really try to deal with what I would call macrocosmic or kind of larger issues in my work that kind of are about humanity in general. And so I'm always kind of researching and digging into our past and looking at civilizations and cultures that I think have had very different ways of speaking, of visual languages about speaking about our place in the universe. So I'm a student of history. I look at, the histories of Mesoamerica, of the global South, really, and the fact that symbologies and symbols have always been used as a way, which is it's a different kind of method of language, obviously, from the way we read or we speak or we talk, which I feel is far more finite. What we do with symbols is far more subliminal and intuitive. So certain patterns, because the whole universe is pattern based and nature is pattern based, I kind of investigate different methods and visual languages to kind of speak to people's more subliminal kind of understandings of their purpose, of their place in the world. And I use, very specific color palettes to do that as well, because I have my own kind of color theory and ideas about what different colors and hues mean.
Okay, so I want to pause you there because your own color theory, I want our audience to see what that looks like. We've been seeing some of your work there. I pulled up this tweet here from Daniela, who shares this picture. You'll see it on your screen in just a moment. And there is that color. So we asked Daniela to elaborate on what this means to her, what this work means to her. She says that blue is just perfect. It reminds me of Klein's, and she's referencing Eve Klein, but it's brighter, warmer, and of course, sexier. I think I'd like to know what that gorgeous blue deeply means to her and why.
Well, it's interesting that she referenced Klein because obviously that's the association that most people have, Yves Klein blue, which I'm a big fan of Yves Klein. I've always spoken about his work and the importance of his work. And when he spoke about Majorelle blue or Klein blue, he said that it is the most abstract of colors. So it's an abyss, it's a void. It's the most abstract because it's likened to the sea or the sky, which is infinite. And I'm always, like I said, dealing with these ideas of macrocosms, of our larger place within this universe, within our space, less localized conversations. So that blue for me was very, very. It kind of connoted those things to me, and it meant that I could investigate these kind of and explore these deeper issues that I was trying to address, and that's why I used that particular blue.
I know that you've said in other interviews that you only work with women professionals, other women in this industry, and because this is International Women's Day and that is the theme and the peg for our show, talk to us about why. Why is that important for you?
I think it's imperative, that we build each other up because, especially in my space, in the art space, and this is obviously less true as time goes on, but there is a void and there is a lack. And specifically to my cultural heritage as an African woman who's an artist in the United States and the United Kingdom and globally, there really is a void that I felt needed to be filled. And so, and I see it. I see, everyone I'm around, other female artists, there's this vacuum that needs to be filled with our voice. And so I even work with and the only gallery I can think of that actually has a certain mandate or has a director of her caliber and her origin from Somaliland, Marian Ibrahim Gallery. And it was very important to me. And literally, she was the only person I would ever sign to as an artist, as representation, because of the importance, I think, of building what is the void that has existed in this space for a long time and championing and supporting fellow women trying to kind of carve a space for themselves and doing it so successfully as well.
So I pulled up this tweet we got from Judge Bush, who says, "Your work means a lot to me because I've been seeing people who are visual artists in my corner who never dreamt of becoming it, and there they are today making some funds off of it. And now the eagerness is there for me to also be like her." So you're inspiring members of our community there, but I wanted you to pick up on the idea of making money from this because arts and the visual arts is not always a realm and an industry that people think you can actually survive on, you can live off on?
You know, that's very much a mentality you have to have when you enter into the space. You know, the idea or the stereotype of the starving artist was never very attractive to me, and I don't think it should be attractive. We don't talk about starving lawyers or starving, you know, architects, but apparently being a starving artist is okay, and I don't think it's romantic, and I don't think it's something that an artist should try to kind of fit into that bill. And so for me, it's important to qualify my work in the proper way and to place my work in the proper spaces and to price the work accordingly to, you know, the value that is inherent within the work. You know, every artwork, I believe, from a perspective, is like your whole life going into it. It's everything you've experienced up until this moment that is kind of in some way subliminally going into that artwork. And that is essentially what people are paying for. They're not just paying for a painting or a sculpture or, you know, an experience. They're also literally being able to buy a piece of a person's life and their experiences and their histories, which are usually very, in our case, as African women in the art space, pretty divergent from the norm of what you see in that space.
So I want to give our last comment here to Jeremy. Jeremy on Twitter says, I like how unique her style and her techniques are. It's stunningly sharp and seizes your attention. Can't say that a single piece stood out more than the others, but rather the whole collection created a nice experience. I'd like to ask what themes and histories she'll be looking to explore next. In just a couple sentences, Lina, what are you tackling next?
I think that every artist is kind of asking the same question throughout their entire career or span of production. So it's not so much about what is next in terms of subject matter, because it's just a constant investigation. But really, it's just how to better express that, how to more accurately express the ideas that I'm having or things I'm thinking about my place and our place in this world that we're in.
Lina, thank you so much. This has been a feast for our eyes. Have a listen now. Thanks for being part of the show. Have a listen now to another inspirational woman.
Happy International Women's Day. On this Women's Day, I want to pay a special tribute to one of my very good friends and an incredibly inspirational woman, Blair Imani. She is a queer, hijabi, Muslim activist, author, all-round baddie, and she is also the author of this amazing book, Modern Herstory, Stories of Women and Non-Binary People Rewriting History. And the reason that Blair inspires me is because she does the difficult thing on social media and in her life of telling her story and standing proudly and being honest about her life and her experiences. And in doing that, represents a whole group of people around the world who just aren't represented properly in the media. And through her books, she also highlights the stories of other women and non-binary people who have changed history and changed the world as we know it.
Now, American boxer Amaya Zafar is changing the world one punch at a time. The Muslim boxer started in the ring at the age of 13, but in 2016, at the age of 16, she was banned from competing in her hijab and modest clothing. She lost the belt that day, but started a fight outside the ring to change the rules. Amaya joins us now from St. Paul, Minnesota to share her story. Welcome to the stream, Amaya. So good to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Love your beautiful backdrop. It looks like a gorgeous day in Minnesota. Perfect day to mark this occasion. Talk to us about what it is that sparked your interest in boxing. Why boxing?
I've been boxing since I was 13, so boxing really raised me. It kind of shaped who I am as a person and how I practice my religion. So when the hijab ban came into play and stopped me from competing, I was like, this is the biggest part of my life, and so is my religion. So, you know, boxing has just always been my life.
And so you kind of say it in passing that it stopped you from competing, that ban on wearing a hijab and the modest clothes that you were wearing, but you were actually disqualified for, quote, defying safety rules. And this was at a national championship. Talk to us about what that felt like. What was that moment like?
So I had always been told I wouldn't be able to compete. Like when I started, they were like, oh, you'll be able to fight, it'll be fine. And then when it came to actually competing, we had went to Florida for a national championship, and I was like about to get in the ring. I was like ready. I was about to get in the ring, and they were like, you can't fight with your hijab, like whatever's on your head, you need to take that off, and your long sleeves and leggings, you have to take that off. And I was like, I'm not taking it off. And they were like, well, it's against the rules. So if you don't take it off, you'll be disqualified. So I ended up being disqualified from that tournament. My opponent was like declared unopposed champion. So they gave her the belt. And she had actually given me the belt and was like, we didn't even get our chance to do our thing in the ring. And this rule isn't fair. So, we'll do this together. We'll get this rule changed together. And ever since then, her act of solidarity really brought light to the whole topic. And after that, it took about a year. And then the USA Boxing changed their rule. And then just last week, the international rule changed as well.
Just last week. So I pulled up that headline here. This is International Boxing Association rewrites rules for hijabi women to compete. And they're showing a picture of another boxer who also happens to wear a scarf. This is Zaina Nassar out of Germany, and she's wearing the new Nike hijab there that they're advertising. What was that announcement like for you? Was that a sense of joy? Did you kind of feel like this is like winning a ring winning a match rather in the ring? What did it feel like?
I couldn't believe it. I was like, this isn't real, because nobody told me. I didn't get any email saying that the world changed. So I was like calling my coaches, like, I just saw this thing on Instagram. This can't be real. And so they were like, yeah, it's true. And I was so happy. I was like, finally, I can show the skill that I've been working on for the last 5 years.
So David here on Twitter says, when the idea to reduce boxing matches from 20 rounds to 15 and then 12 was first proposed, many didn't like the idea. Also, the wearing of helmets or women boxers, but those things are also now accepted. So I'm sure that in time, women boxing and hijabs will be accepted. Do you feel accepted? Because changing the rules is one thing, but actually feeling accepted by your opponents and other colleagues in the sport is another thing. Do you feel accepted?
I really agree with what he said, because things have to change. Even just 2012 was the first year that women's boxing was in the Olympics. So things are definitely changing. I wouldn't say just because a rule change that means that even just girl boxers will be accepted everywhere. Girl boxing itself, female boxing itself is like new in the game. So it will take time, but people are definitely really welcoming, especially in my community. I get nothing but support.
That's so great to hear. We got this tweet from Hanadi who says, Amaya is a true warrior, fighting her way up to a national recognition. She is changing the rules of the game, literally, and fighting stereotypes with every punch. I'm proud of what she has accomplished and believe the best is yet to come for her. I wanted to share another tweet from someone else. This is Esma. She says, having inspired girls and women of your caliber, what are your long-term goals being a Muslim female boxer? What is up next for you?
So my goals originally was for me to be able to compete. So now that I can compete, I just want to, people know me more as an activist to get the rules changed. And now I want to show people my actual skill. That's a really old video, by the way. My skill has got way better. Just wait and see. I'm not going to say like, oh, I'm trying to go to the Olympics or I'm trying to go pro, whatever. I just want people to watch for my name and see what I'm going to do.
I like that you had to clarify that was in an old video, and so your style and form has changed a bit. This is a tweet from someone who you might know well, Amaya Zafar, your father. My daughter, the boxer who fought for hijab rule change since she was 14, is talking about USA Boxing and international boxing rule change on hijab and how she's looking forward to fighting her way to the 2024 Olympics in Paris. So even though you may not want to say right now that you're trying to head to the Olympics, your father is saying it. What would you say to
my dad? My dad wants me to go to the moon. He wants everything from me. So he has, of course, he wants me to go to the Olympics, all these things. And of course, I want to go to the Olympics. Those are definitely my goals. But I have much more goals than just to say, I just want to go to the 2024 Olympics. I have a lot of things I want to do.
Well, thank you for being with us, Amaya. We wish you the very best and all that lies ahead for you.
Someone who inspires me is Professor Catherine Hamans of the University of Edinburgh. She's incredibly intelligent and an excellent researcher, but that's pretty common in our field of astrophysics. What's more outstanding is that she's an engaging lecturer with awards to back it up. She's a really caring and devoted advisor and mentor, and I can testify to that as her ex-PhD student. And she's well known for her unique ways of communicating science to the public in a way that encourages more young people, especially more young females, into the field. And she's not just inspiring for a female, she's inspiring on any playing field.
In Denmark, campaigners are working hard to change the law on consent. Currently, the legislation doesn't define rape by the absence of consent, but by other factors, such as whether physical violence or threats were used. The University of Southern Denmark estimates that as many as 24,000 women and girls were affected by rape in Denmark in 2017. Yet only 890 rapes were reported to police that year, and of these, 535 resulted in prosecutions and only 94 in convictions. Christine Holst is one of the campaigners breaking the silence around the issue. She joins us now from Fredericia, Denmark. Welcome to the stream. Thanks so much for being here. Why was it important for you to tell your story?
Well, after my perpetrator was acquitted for the crime, I was very shocked and got quite angry. And I lost my confidence in the justice system, which I used to believe in. And so I contacted Amnesty International because I felt my rights were violated, and they were doing research on these topics. And I gave an interview along with 17 other women, and we united afterwards, making a movement.
Talk to us about what the law says right now when it comes to consent and when it comes to guilt, because I think for our audience, it might be difficult to understand that if someone isn't found guilty, it doesn't mean something didn't happen. So talk to us about that and the challenge that you're facing.
Yes, our current legislation is based on threat and violence, and that means that the victim has a responsibility of saying no and to resist her perpetrator. And the problem is that most rape victims react with passivity in the rape situation. And when they are not resisting, there won't be that much violence. And therefore, it would be difficult to prove the crime in court. But those victims have still been raped. And rape is a crime with severe consequences for the victims.
Alicio here on Twitter says, I support the campaign because a sexual relationship without consent is certainly a rape, and they're referring to the campaign launched by Amnesty, Let's Talk About Yes. And I wanted to share one of the tweets from one of those campaigners. This is Thomas from Amnesty International. Here is a smart human rights solution that could change our societies for the better. Just 8 out of 31 European countries' laws say sex without consent is rape. Today, Amnesty calls on Denmark to make it 9. No excuse for any government. Did that surprise you when you learned of that number, 8 out of 31? And is this something you think could actually change?
Well, I think that Denmark will change its legislation soon, actually. I was surprised that it was that many countries which actually had a consent-based rape legislation. I didn't know. And our mission in this movement has been to spreading factual information about rape, making awareness about rape, killing myths and stereotypes, but also telling what consent is, and that a country as United Kingdom and Germany and Sweden, Iceland, Belgium, Luxembourg, and so on has a consent-based rape legislation, so it isn't that difficult, though some people think it is.
I wanted to share a message of support, it would seem, from the Danish Minister of Justice on Twitter. You can see the tweet here, translated below, and I'll read the translation. Important report from Amnesty. We cannot live with the fact that rape victims have the kind of experiences described in this report. Sex must always be voluntary. The government is currently considering models for a rape law that is based on consent. How does that make you feel? Are you optimistic about that?
Very optimistic, very optimistic. Through this work, we also spoke to a lot of politicians, and we come very, very far this year. A year ago, consent-based rape legislation was something most people laughed about because it was something they talked about in Sweden, and Sweden has a lot of laws and rules, and we are laughing a little about that in Denmark. So, but now they don't laugh anymore. They take it extremely seriously, also because we have succeeded in making awareness about factual information about rapes and statistics, how many people this concerns every year, and the consequences of the rape, of the crime, of course.
I know, Kirsten, that it cannot be easy to get up and tell the story of a time when you were attacked, and yet you're doing it and other women are looking to you. What is your message for them, and what do you want people to take away from your story?
I want them to see what happens when you break the silence. My message to other women is break the silence and unite and support each other. Also, unite with the men. They would like to support you. They have also got sisters, girlfriends, wives, mothers, and so on. And then dare to challenge what's expected from you. If they expect you to be silent, then shout it out loud. And if they expect you to be a nice girl and behave good, then be angry. It's okay to be emotional. We are fighting for the right to a good life.
Christine, perfect way to end this conversation. We have to leave it there. We will, of course, continue to follow the story out of Denmark. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Before we go, I have just enough time to thank the team that put on today's show, and of course the women on that team that put on today's show, and that is producer Maya Garg, Anade Satuma, Lisa Thompson, Alex Sarabia, Dongyang Ni, Maddie Finkel, Rachel Kuntz, and Aya El Jalili, and of course the men that support the women on our team. And finally, we asked our community to share names of the women that they look to for inspiration. I'll leave you with those.